Hey folks, Nate Gilman here from MMCs. I just want to give a quick talk on the military to mariner stuff that's going on. It's really, really cool. It's super supportive. And I personally used it to get my Coast Guard license. I housebiked my way all the way from being a nobody up to a third mate unlimited by just following the rules and figuring it all out. And I'm super happy to share what I've learned with everyone else. So to dive in, the first question you need to ask every time is, what do you want to do on the water, right? Like, you need to know what you're going to do, right? Do you want to work in a passenger ferry, a tugboat, inland, offshore, a T-boat, go out to an oil rig, maybe stay home and take people scuba diving? I don't know, right? But you need to know what you want to do. And then you also need to know what you want to do on that boat. Do you want to work on the engines, be an engineer? Do you want to be the guy driving the boat, be the captain, maybe just work at a deckhand, figuring out if you want to have lots of responsibility, such as like a chief engineer or the chief mate or master on a big boat. Or if you want maybe some less responsibility, like you want to go home every night and be a deckhand to just make sure the boat's running well. Each one, that all depends on you, right? Like there's licenses for everything. Because there's over 850 different Coast Guard licenses and endorsements. Each one has different specialties, all the way from the engineers. They might have like endorsed on gas turbine vessels and diesel vessels, but they don't work on steam, all the way down to there's 6 different able seamen licenses, right? And each one has a different piece, and then there's international endorsements that tag on that. So to break that down a little further, nobody really talks about there's 2 parts of an MMC, right? Like an MMC is what we call a Merchant Mariner Credential, which is your Coast Guard license. There's the national part, which is like Master of 100 tons, and that's great, but that really only works nationally here in the United States. And then there's the STCW part, which is for everything for near coastal licenses and above. You need to have that STCW component for pretty much every job that's going to be offshore at all. So it's a national license and that international endorsement tacked on. A good example here is, so like for deck officers, you have the 3 different tiers of unlimited. So that's any tonnage, big, huge boats, less than 1,600 tons, but greater than 200 tons. So those are kind of that medium-sized boats that are cruising around. And then you have the less than 200 gross tons that are the ferry boats, small little boats, a bunch of OSVs in the oil field. For the deck ratings, we have all the different able seaman endorsements, as well as the OS that breaks you in, and then just that entry-level OS. And you'll see here in a second, these are all the domestic licenses. And then the international endorsements get tacked on there, right? So you have the unlimited, say, third mate unlimited, tonnage, and then you're also going to need an officer in charge of navigational watch. It's one piece. And then as you move up, you're going to need a master or chief mate of 3,000 gross tons as you become a master or chief mate unlimited. Same thing for the lower level licenses. And then same thing in the deck department, right? If you're going to be an able seaman, you need to have RFP&W, which is rating forming part of a navigational watch. Once you've had that for a while, you're going to need to upgrade to able seafarer deck. Each one of these means more money, right? This is you getting paid more the more things you go. It's really hard to get a job as an able seaman if you don't have the rest of the STCW attached on there. You're going to go ahead and get this by like really diving in, right? Like there is the National Maritime Center is the kind of storehouse of all of this information where you have all these different things. They're really, really helpful. They're great people there. And there's going to be a bunch of these checklists. You can see the checklist there on the right-hand side of the screen. This checklist tells you everything you need to do. They're a little confusing, but once you start reading a bunch of them, you're really going to dive in. We broke it down to just 8 really easy steps. The first thing you're going to do, get all of your sea service documents. Every boat you've ever been on, every training certificate you've gotten that is Coast Guard approved will work for the Coast Guard. If it's not Coast Guard approved, guess what? It doesn't count. It doesn't matter. It has to be Coast Guard approved, and you need a Coast Guard approved certificate with it. The STCW NVICs, we'll talk about that a little more in a little bit, but they're checklists that you can have signed off on the ship if you're active duty still, right? So for documentation of sea service, if your boat's over 65 feet and you are in the Army, the Coast Guard, the NOAA Corps, hopefully someday the Navy, you need to have that transcript of sea service. You'll see mine a little bit, but you get the right amount of sea time based on the Military to Mariner initiative that will hook you up. If you don't do that, you are losing sea days and you are losing money. You're physically losing money if you use the wrong documents. So get the right documents. Transcript of sea service will have contact information at the bottom. And once you have all that training, you have all that sea service, you have all the different checklists done, then you can dive into the check sheets and figure out what you qualify for, right? It's kind of a 1 and 2 are the same thing going on at once. And once you're ready to apply, once you figured out what you want to get, and you figured out where you want to work, then you're going to get a TWIC. When you get that TWIC, that's your Transportation Worker Identification Card. We have another YouTube video that will help out with every part of that. But definitely need to have a TWIC. And you need to get a physical. So you need to have a physical of some type. You need to have proof of drug testing of some kind. Then you need to calculate the fees and pay what you're applying for, right? It's pay.gov, pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Once you've done all of that, then you're going to fill out the 719B. If this is your first time ever doing these things, like this is what we do for renewals, this is what we do for upgrades, this is what we do for the first time. But if it's your first time, you're also going to need to swear the mariner's oath and have that notarized. If you're a civilian, if you're active duty, it's pretty easy. Someone can do it in your command. And to dive in there a little bit further, the tips and tricks for veterans and active duty service members. This applies to everyone, no matter if you're active duty or you've already left, right? If you are on a boat over 65 feet, make sure you have a transcript of sea service issued from your HR personnel. Coast Guard has a very specific path. You'll see the contact information to get that. NOAA has a very specific path to get that documentation. Army has a very specific path. All the contact information is at the end of this video. Navy is working on it right now. But beware, if you use anything other than a transcript of sea service, you are losing sea days. You are losing money. You are losing your progression in your career. So make sure you submit a transcript of sea service. A sea service letter is not what you're going to submit. And the reason for that is that with a transcript of sea service, you get credit from the day you reported to the ship to the day you depart to the ship. So you just do the time. So for a 3-year assignment, in this example, you get 657 days. That 657 days is divided by 0.6. So the easiest way to do that, 365 times 3, which is 657. Nope. And then you times that by 0.6 or 60%, and you get 657 days of sea credit. I don't know how many of you guys have been underway for 657 days in the whole time you're there, but this is the way to go. This is the reality. And then it gets even better if you stood a bridge watch or an engineering watch and you were a qualified OOD officer of the deck or an engineering officer of the watch. Your first 540 days after the calculation are doubled if you're going to be obtaining your first third mate unlimited or your third engineer unlimited, right? So that means, let's say you did a 3-year assignment, you got your OD letter or EOW in the first 6 months. That means you have 1,195 sea days on vessels over, the right tonnage really quickly. The math's there. I'm happy to answer questions the whole time. Always happy to help out. And then in addition to that, your sea service, typically you have to have 90 days within the last 3 years. All the civilians have to have 90 days within the last 3 years for whatever license they're going for, with tonnage, with the right roles they were performing. As an active duty service member, we have 7 years, right? So if you retired and you had 90 days within the last 7 years at some time in that period, you're still good to go. Like, you're still rocking and rolling. It's awesome. In addition, if you are active duty right now, you're definitely going to want to use all the resources that are available for you. And one of those resources is the STCW NBIS. So this is the Officer in Charge Navigational Watch, Chief Mate Master, STCWs, all of the ratings forming part of Navigational Watch, QMed, checklists, everything. They can be signed by most COs, XOs, and folks that are qualified on the EOW PQSs. You're good to go, right? Like, they can sign that off. You don't have to go to a class. You don't have to do all this other stuff. Do it on the ship with your command. They're all qualified assessors. And the other thing is, if you're active duty, you're part of a drug testing program. So don't pay to get a drug test. That's already included. Just do the paperwork to get the right drug test. The one thing you're going to want to do is make sure it has the applicant's name and then this exact verbiage, right? Has been subject to a random drug testing program with no subsequent positive drug tests during the remainder of the 6-month period. And then it has to be signed. Has to be signed by the actual person that can approve of that. So your HR professional, yeoman, whoever it needs to be, but someone needs to do that, and it needs to be on official letterhead. Like, it's free. Take advantage of that. You guys may have seen the Military to Marine Executive Order come out. This was awesome. It was a really great thing that President Trump did. And the main thing that it pushed for was a push that every service needs to have all of their training that could qualify for a Merchant Mariner credential needs to be submitted and part of that program. So any training that you take as a active duty service member that remotely relates to maritime credentials in any way needs to be approved by the Coast Guard. So that means, say, if you're in NOAA and you took RefTray and they didn't make those things happen, that is violating the executive order because you took a course that should have been Coast Guard approved and it wasn't. It's not sad. Physicals, again, we take physicals all the time. Everyone that gives you a physical is approved to give you a physical. So the one thing you want to do is bring that Coast Guard form with you. Go to that National Maritime Center website, print off the CG 719K, print off that form and bring it in with you. Doesn't matter what other forms are doing. PAs are super helpful. They're there to help. They're awesome. They'll sign the form for you. They'll go through it at the same time. It's very little work, right? But that works for you guys. And then sea service. Make sure you're getting your sea service. It's in the executive order. It's the right thing to do. Everyone's here to support you, but like you have to do it, right? So you have to reach out and get that sea service for when you're active duty. And then a really cool bonus is a lot of the services are offering, a TWIC reimbursement program, which is really helpful. Helps you save those fees. They're not much, but it definitely helps. Everything helps. That's really great. And in addition to that, your evaluations, your testing, and your issuance of your license are all waived, all the fees for any licenses you're doing as long as you're active duty. There's a form, a memo that you need to have your command sign that's really easy to do. Shoot me an email and I'm happy to give you a template, put it all down there. It's all on the Coast Guard's website. We're here to help you guys. But that's all waived. That's money. Use that. Get your command to sign that. That's what you need to do. And so really what we looked at, we looked at these 8 basic steps. Everything in bold, the Military to Mariner program helps you out with it, right? There's an easy pathway to get your sea service. Your training certs are supposed to be training certs. So get those training certs that are Coast Guard approved training certs. They have a little code on them. You need that. Get your NVIC signed. Get those things checked out, right? And then it's on you. The one part that's on here is you have to figure out what you qualify for. Luckily, we made a web app for that. But just no matter what, you have to figure it out on your own. There's nothing that helps you out, really. There's a couple tools that are starting to figure it out, but they have a long way to go. They have a little bit done. We have everything done. Get your TWIC. Make sure your TWIC works. Get your physical. Get your proof of drug tests. Figure out what your fees are. If you're active duty, guess what your fees are? Nothing. Awesome. Just make sure you have the memo. And then get your CO to sign the Mariner's Oath, your XO, someone. And then it's on you to fill out that 719B, which is the application for this whole thing, and make sure you put the right words on everything. Again, we also made a web app for that. But you can do it yourself as well. There's nothing standing in your way. An amazing piece that's going on as well is there's money out there. There's money to help you figure out these next pieces, right? The cool sites are really great. The Army cool, Coast Guard cool, Marine Corps cool, Navy Credentialing Online cool. They're all here to help you. And they just developed Meal Gears, which is a cool new tool. It's coming out. It definitely is still rough and needs a lot of work, but it's a great step in the right direction. And it's coming out to help everyone out. And hopefully the Navy will get it together and get some transcript to sea service here so they can actually support their service members again. And then the amazing part is the Army and the Coast Guard and NOAA have a lot of support available for you, right? So if you're in the Army, you're an 88K, you're an 88E, you are in the Transportation Corps for the waterways world, you already know that you're in there. Reach out to the email there. I'll put an email in the comments as well. If you're in the Coast Guard is doing great work. The FORCECOM is just doing amazing things right now. They're here to help out. And then if you're in NOAA Corps, they have a lot of resources available to help us get the transcript to sea service and the drug test documentation really, really easily. So definitely make sure to use those. Again, I'm Nate Gilman. These are my actual pieces of paper that I accumulated throughout my career, pushing down as I was active duty and went from being a nobody all the way up through. I have some captain's licenses now with sailing endorsements on them, as well as my third man unlimited on the oceans with all the FCCW parts as part of it. And I did it just by reading all the regulations, reading the rules, and making everything happen. And we created MMCs, which is taking all that stuff that was in my brain and making it in a web app so it's really easy for you to use. So you can add in all the active duty service member information you have, all your training certs that are approved training certs, all of your supporting documents, so that drug test, that TWIC, whatever else you have, that oath, all goes in there. And then you can choose at a click of a button. You can just hit a button. We'll take care of the whole application, show you what you qualify for, really help you out. Or you can export all your stuff whenever you want to, and you can submit it yourself. Again, I'm Nate Gilman. I hope this was helpful. Shoot me an email at nate@mmcs.com, or check us out at www.mmcs.com.